Hello, I'm Brian Costello, and welcome to the Teacher's Journey podcast, where we talk with some of the best educators around about learning and life as they share the stories that made them the educators they are today. Welcome back to the Teacher's Journey, and thanks so much again for joining us. My guest tonight is Megan Schmidt, a math teacher from Minnesota. I'm really excited to have Megan join me tonight. Megan is a really, really incredible math teacher. She has some really cool things with math and art. And just from following through her blog and getting a chance to talk to her here and there, I know that she has an incredible story to share. So thanks again for joining us tonight, Megan.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Like I was telling you before we kind of started recording, I'm just going to start with the beginning. So at some point in your life, you decided that you were going to teach. What was that like? When was that?
My undergraduate degree is in accounting. And so I graduated in 2002 with a degree in accounting. And that was kind of the beginning of the Sarbanes-Oxley Enron, all of that. And so I got a job as an accountant at Wells Fargo in Minneapolis because they're semi-headquartered down there. And I was an accountant at Wells Fargo for like 2 years, and it was awful. Like it just was boring and not fulfilling, and I didn't have enough to do, and I didn't really know what I was doing because I didn't really like it that much. And so I decided to go back to school at the University of Minnesota to get my teaching license. And so I looked into which area I should get my teaching license in. And the University of Minnesota said, you need to take this many prerequisites to get a license to teach business and this many to teach math. And the math one was one less class. But then I thought about it and thought there aren't a lot of jobs in high school business teaching, so I decided to go with math.
Okay, so why did you decide to go back for the teaching license? Was it just like, why not? Or was somebody tell you it might be something you'd like?
Teaching was always something that I thought about for a long time, and it was one of those things where I just, I went to school to be an accountant because my dad's a banker and his dad was a business person, and I just, it seemed like the safe thing to do was do, accounting or finance. And so once I figured out that I couldn't do a lifetime of that kind of work, I wanted to do something that was more fulfilling. And so I tried teaching.
So you went back to school. You chose, I think, probably definitely again the safer and also more interesting of the two in terms of what's possible for your. So you got a certification in math. Mm-hmm. Were you able to find something when you got out, or was it a challenge?
Yeah, I graduated, or I finished my teaching in the spring of 2005, and I was able to find a job pretty quickly near where I lived, and started in the 2005-2006 school year at a high school it's like an outer tier northern suburb of the Twin Cities. Okay. And I worked there for 13 years. So
yeah. That's so is that the only school district you worked in, or did you?
Yeah, it is.
Wow. So, and always high school math?
Yeah. I started teaching just, algebra, geometry, algebra 2, and then about maybe 7-ish years into my career, I got licensed to teach. We have a college in the schools program, so I was able to teach college algebra to high school kids. And then I also was able to teach AP stats. So I got certified to teach AP stats and did
Yeah.
that.
Stats is one of the things I've seen you kind of share some things about, which is always find your statistics projects and things like that to be interesting.
Yeah, stats is an area that like there's a lot of pushback as far as within like secondary math about stats, because it kind of, when kids decide to take stats, it's usually in at the expense of taking something like calculus. But I mean, there are so many areas of high level math that you can take. Calculus is just one of them. And, in high school, we usually think of the pyramid all, leading up to calculus, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
Yeah, that wasn't even a choice when I was in high school. So that's, it's good to hear that there are more choices.
Yeah, and lots of colleges are requiring kids to take like nursing majors. Nursing majors sometimes have to take calculus. Well, now they have to take stats instead, which seems to me to be more useful than any kind of calculus for a nurse.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got your first job, you walked in the classroom, you're going to teach high school math. You're like, I can do this. You walk in the door, you close the door, kids come in. What happens? Like, was it like smooth sailing, total train wreck, somewhere in the middle?
I would say somewhere in the middle. I mean, I think that I have a natural gift for teaching, so I was pretty comfortable, and a passion for math, so that was helpful. But there definitely were, challenging groups and challenging kids. My first year teaching, I had a special ed co-teacher who taught the class with me, and so that was really, if you have an opportunity to teach with a special ed teacher in the same classroom at the same time, there's really a lot of benefit that can happen there. She was a very, very veteran teacher, like probably was 3 or 4 years from retirement. And so she had a lot to teach me about, kids and classrooms and just about anything, high school kid related. Like, she had an experience with that. So I was really grateful.
You say that was a really helpful thing for you to have, just in general, to have that other person with all that experience, and who's also probably willing to share it with you. And
right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So as you're going through teaching, you're trying to you're kind of figuring out, you had a good, I guess it seems like you had a pretty good mentor your first year in terms of helping you get settled and dealing with new experiences. You talk about just working with high school kids, some of the difficulties that you might have come across, and what it was like to work in a high school environment, what it was like for you coming from, a business to work in a school district comparatively.
Let's see. Working in a school is definitely different as far as every year there's budget cuts somewhere, which is not necessarily how it is in the business world. High school kids, the thing with high school kids is sometimes we assume that they're just young, smaller adults. So we think that they can accept the same responsibility, or they know, how to take responsibility. I learned pretty quickly about the undeveloped prefrontal cortex of a teenager, and that a lot of their decisions are based on impulse and immediate gratification rather than thinking something through. And that's just how their brains have developed. That's not necessarily because they knew better and just chose not to. And making that adjustment from working with just adults all day long to being responsible for leading a group of teenagers was a shift for me, that these were not small adults.
No, they're not. There's definitely a big difference between kids and adults. And, I think that's interesting you point that out, because it's something I see a lot when I work with middle schoolers now, and it's so easy to think that they are adult-like because they do adult-like things a lot of times, but
Mm-hmm.
they're not. I mean, they're not there, and
Well,
I
and
see people get
also,
frustrated by that really easily.
yeah, I have people will say that to me a lot. Like, how do you work with high school kids? That must be so frustrating. And it's just the age group that I chose to work with and that I enjoyed. I think that I go to my daughter's first grade classroom every week, and I don't understand how the teacher does this every day. I mean, I go there for an hour and a half a week, and she does it all day long every day. And I don't understand it. But that's because I think there are people who have learned to communicate with high school kids, with middle school kids, with elementary kids, and there's a skill set to that. I think also something I learned my first few years of teaching and up until the end of teaching high school was that when kids make a decision, it usually has nothing to do with you as a teacher. It has to do with everything else they have going on in their lives, and not to take, when kids don't do their homework or they cheat on a test or they, whatever, it's not because of anything you did as a teacher. It's because of everything else that has led up to that decision.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think one of the things I've noticed also when I work with middle school is that as people try to make that decision about them, it really alienates their relationship with kids. Like, kids
Right.
get frustrated because it's not about them, but
Mm-hmm.
then that becomes personal between the two of them, and it really kind of sabotages their ability to work with the kids. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
really good point. So you mentioned you had your daughter in her first grade. So that probably was like a big transition for you, right? Like, so going from teaching and then having a family and kind of changing the dynamic of what you were doing. Um, how did that affect your work life, everything?
I think having a daughter helped me to recognize more clearly what parents are giving us as students. Like they're giving us the best that they can. Like, parents are not purposely they're not purposely, not teaching their kids how to study or not helping their kids with homework, or, like, let's take the homework example. Kids, have parents that can't help them with their homework. It's not because they don't want to. It's because maybe they work at night, or they, don't remember algebra 2, or they, I don't know. But it really helped me to understand that the kids that it really helped me understand parents that
Being a parent is hard.
well, it was more like, yeah, being a parent is hard for sure, but it was more like that. Let me think for a sec how I wanted to formulate this thought. Oh, it's that, like, you are sending your kid out into the world, trusting that, out into school for 6-7 hours a day, trusting that they are being taken care of and nurtured and respected and by the adults in the building. And it's you have to trust that as a parent, that the teachers are doing the best for your kid, whether it's educationally or just keeping them safe. And that was a big eye-opener for me, was that I didn't realize how, you are putting your heart on your kid's sleeve every time you send them out the door. And that's true, of all kids in school.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I didn't realize that I would feel that way every single year too. So like
Mhm.
preschool is like, oh man, this is so important. It's like, it's a big deal. She's got this like the foundation of her going to school, and her preschool teacher was amazing. And then my daughter, this year's kindergarten, I'm like, I don't know, like it's kindergarten. And now she's like, I taught kindergarten before. I know like what this should look like in my head. And if it doesn't look like that, how am I going to feel? And you see, I feel like when your daughter gets to high school, you're going to be like in a whole different place because you know what you want that to look like.
Right, right. But also understanding, from an educator's point of view, like understanding all that goes on during a school day and what a teacher is given as for resources, like those two things don't necessarily match up perfectly. The teacher is doing the best they can with whatever resources they have. It also helped me to understand like when things will come home from my daughter's school and I have no idea what they are. Like she's supposed to bring home this folder and I'm supposed to look at it every night and empty it and sign the things and send back the forms. And I do a really, really terrible job with that. And it helped me to realize all the things that parents have with their kids that come home from school and how some of it just, like you're supposed to read this many minutes a night. Like, when are we going to have time for that?
Yeah. And if she wants to do it, awesome. But if she doesn't want to do it, those nights are
right.
not happening. Those
Right.
nights.
So it helped me like understand, like these are high school kids who are so much more involved than my 7-year-old, and I have a hard time keeping track of my 7-year-old's, goings on.
I'm
With
just
school.
happy if my kid's shoes are on the right feet when she walks out the door. It's amazing how that can change your perspective on how parents are doing the best they can. Like I have early childhood teaching education training. Like I've worked in early childhood classes, and there are days when I can't get my kid to go to bed or to eat not mac and cheese or to or to
right, exactly.
Or to not throw her clothes on the floor in the bedroom when she gets changed. Like
right, exactly.
Those little things that you're like, oh, I can teach kids to read. I should be able to teach my kid not to throw her stuff around the house. But no, I'm still the one picking it up half the time because that's life. I mean, that's what sometimes parenting just works that way. So that's really good. I think that's really good and important things to share. So I want to ask you a little bit about some things that you've shared, some personal things that you've shared with your blog and with people who read, especially with the math Twitter community, because I know I had no idea how one large that community was, but also how amazing that the math Twitter community really is. I found out when I got to go to NCTM the one year, I met so many people. And I was like, wow, you guys are like awesome and weird and amazing all at the same time. But so you share a lot, and you share very personally, I think very openly, which I think is amazing. One of the things that I try to impress upon people is that education's hard and it's stressful, and we don't always win. Sometimes we lose. Sometimes it's too much. Sometimes it's overwhelming, and I think a lot of people don't like to admit that. So can you talk a little bit about dealing with stress and anxiety as a teacher, and how you've worked through some of that, and just anything really that you'd be willing to talk about, because I think it's important for people to realize that teaching takes a toll on you at times, and you have to figure out if you can, one, how, and if you can do certain things so that it doesn't take over.
Right. So I think I'm pretty sure that my whole life I've been an alcoholic, and but when I became a teacher, it like teachers have stressful jobs, and on Fridays they like to go to the bar and drink with other teachers and crap about administration or kids or classes, and that was a way to connect with other teachers socially and, in outside of the classroom. I think that when I had Maria, my daughter, after I had Maria, I started drinking a lot. And that was more to deal with the stress of having it helped. Drinking after school helped me to kind of deal with the craziness that was now my after school life. And
kind of craziness at all ends.
Right. And in 2012, I kind of hit, like alcoholics say, hit rock bottom, and went to an AA meeting on a Saturday morning and haven't drank since then, which is great. I mean, it's been, this last March was 6 years, which is fantastic. But
and before you go any further, I just want to say that's
there's a lot. Thank you. Thanks. But what happened was when I stopped drinking, I found that I was using alcohol to deal with my anxiety, social anxiety, anxiety over, my daughter, over life in general, teaching. I just had all of this overwhelming anxiety that was not being masked by alcohol anymore. And so over the last 6 years, a lot of that has I've been dealing with, how do I deal with this anxiety that I didn't know existed to this level before then. And what helps me is to kind of be open and honest about it, because that allows other people to kind of connect with where you're coming from. Because I mean, I'm not the only teacher that has social anxiety and would rather sit in her house all day than, do anything with three-dimensional people.
No, those people are scary.
And so it's allowed me to kind of meet a lot of people that are going through the same thing.
And that's one of the reasons I really wanted you to come on and share is there are a lot of people, and that's something I didn't realize, 8-9 years ago when I was newer in education and I was just kind of getting started, is there's a lot of teachers. I mean, there's a lot of people in general, but there's a lot of teachers who deal with anxiety or depression or any number of other difficulties, then they don't talk about it because people don't talk about it. So the fact that you are open, that you're honest about it, that you give people a chance to reach out to you, talk to you about it, I think that helps. I don't know how it helps you specifically. Maybe it just helps that people to talk to, but I know it helps other people to know that they're not alone.
Well, see, I think talking this out now kind of helped me realize like where that came from and why because I'm not like super upfront about everything in my life, but it seems like the struggles I have, I seem to be more upfront about that. Back in 2004, 2005, was going through a divorce, and after the divorce, I decided to go to therapy for the first time in my life. So I'm 25 years old, going to therapy, and this therapist, I've seen her on and off for the last 13 years, and she really helped me to figure out that when you put something out there into the world, as far as like saying it to just one other person or putting it out there on social media, like it has less power over you because you've put it out there and then you can look at it from all angles once it's out there. And so I think that over years and years of on and off therapy has helped me to recognize that the most helpful thing in dealing with issues is putting it out there and then examining it and examining why, it wasn't, the alcohol was a symptom of something, of lots of other things.
Yeah.
It wasn't caused by this or that. It was a symptom.
Yeah. And I mean, what I really just impresses upon me most is that this is something that, you put it out there and you find out, and the more you put out there, the more I see other people put this out there, the more I see more people coming forward and saying, I'm dealing with this, or I've struggled with this. And less people hiding from or hiding their struggles. And like you said, when you put it out there, you have the chance to look at it, but also it's not weighing as much on you anymore because it's not your thing. It's just the thing. It's
right. It took me a long time to figure out that it was actual anxiety, that I couldn't necessarily control it. It wasn't just I'm being unfriendly, or I want to be by myself, or I don't want to be helpful. It's actual, like an actual physical reaction and emotional reaction I'm having to chemicals in my brain. And that took me a long time to kind of acknowledge and hold on to, was that this wasn't just me being, a crab about stuff. It was, I can't help that, when I'm around a lot of people, I want to crawl into a corner and hide.
Yeah. I think that's different. And so like I've tried to explain to people, and I think it's probably different for everybody. So when I'm with a lot of people, I will be overly talkative. I will talk a lot. I will talk really fast. I will say way more. Sometimes I will dominate a conversation, and then I'll walk away from it thinking, wow, I did not let other people talk, or I didn't and then I also feel exhausted for like a day and a half and don't want to talk to another person at all. Yeah. But I always just thought of that as me being sort of introverted. I never thought of it, and I still never really have put any significant thought into it being a form of like social anxiety at all. More like for me, it's just when I'm in a large group of people, this is how I overcompensate for my tendency to think things a lot through in my head. And it even comes through the way I speak out loud. This is the first time we've had an out loud conversation and not online, but I have a cadence that's slow, and occasionally I pause randomly in the middle of sentences, which people who listen to this will notice after 3 or 4 podcasts at least, is because I'm always thinking about what I'm about to say before it comes out, because I never like to let it come out until I've thought it through, until it's processed through everything going on up here. So when I'm in a big group of people, it's like it just all vomits out of my mouth at the same time. And yeah, so it's and I find this interesting because one of the things that I know that I've seen you do and I've seen you share about is you go and share and present on different topics in math. I've seen you present some pretty cool statistics. I actually watched one, I think watched one on Periscope once where you were talking about statistics.
Oh, really?
So I think so. I don't. It was like probably last year, maybe.
What I was talking about.
But I mean, for somebody who has, and I mean, I go out and do this stuff too, but you're definitely in a different. You've definitely been in a different place than I am. I think. I don't want to compare necessarily, but the idea that for somebody who recognizes and admits and finds difficulties in these social situations, that you still put yourself out there and you go out and you have these conversations and you share what you do. And talk about that, like the decision to do that, like, why do you do that? Like, why do you put yourself through it?
Yeah, that's a good question, because the first conference that I presented at was our state math conference. And, it's a pretty relaxed setting, pretty supportive group of teachers. Minnesota has a pretty strong math teacher community. And I was so nervous to do it. And I was doing it with a friend of mine, so I wasn't even by myself. But it was something that I had wanted to do, through my career. And then I realized you just have to apply. And in Minnesota, most people that apply are accepted because that's what they want to do at the state conference is kind of give you an opportunity to present, things you're interested in. And so I did it and it was great. But afterward, I'm completely exhausted. I remember this past November, I was in Chicago presenting on stats with a friend of mine, and people come up to you and talk after, and then people hang out and want to talk, and I was just like, I need to be away from all the people for
a couple hours to just
yeah, right. And I just recognizing that I can do this outgoing thing as long as afterward I have time, because at those things, people will, let's go to happy hour, or let's meet at this, do trivia at this bar. And I can enjoy those things for sure. But not on a day that I'm presenting. I leaving, spaces for myself to be by myself is something that I recognize that I needed to do to make those doable for me.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I know that I've talked to some other people who had said the same thing. And when I went to ISTE in Denver in 2016, I didn't even leave myself time to sleep in my window because I wanted to get there as the last possible second and leave the earliest possible time so that I didn't spend as much time away from my family. So I flew out in the first super early in the morning, and I left in the middle of the night, and pretty much went from start to finish in between. And I remember I slept in the middle of a coach seat on a flight back from Denver to New Jersey. And I was I feel how did you sleep in the middle seat, coach? I'm I just put headphones on so nobody would this is nighttime. So people were kind of sleeping, but still I was out, I was out cold. And if it weren't for them, waking me up when we got there, we landed, you should get up now. I'm all right. But yeah, it was exhausting. And I was let me try to get as much out of this in the 2 days I'm there. And I went nonstop. And I don't think I could do that anymore. I don't think I could do that again because there's just so much all
right.
at once.
And in those conferences, there's so many people that you want to talk to and let's meet for coffee, let's meet for lunch, let's, this. And it becomes this never ending stream of interaction with people. And yes. I just can't. I cannot interact with people face to face for that many.
All that time. Yeah.
Yeah. I just can't do it. And I just need to be mindful when I'm at those things to, leave myself an escape almost to, even just hotel room to, headphones are something I use a lot, because when someone has headphones on, it's usually, pretty clear that
they're not interested in talking.
And it's not to be unfriendly. It's because I need to be, I'm de-stressing myself.
Yeah. You just need to recharge a little bit and reload. I was lucky enough when I was out there the second day I met a chance to meet Mari Venturino, and she was I need quiet time for myself. She's so me and her talked for 20 minutes, and she's I'm going to go to this session and I'm not going to talk in it. I'm just going to sit and be quiet and listen. And she's if you want to hang out there and just sit, be quiet also, I'm up for that. I was that sounds amazing. I never even thought to do something like that. So we basically just hid out in a session that was it was a session that she wanted to go to, and it was interesting. It was about moonshot thinking and everything. And this was 2 or 3 years ago. Before that was way, way overdone. But it was great. We just went to the same thing. We both were there. We didn't say a word to each other. And I was why didn't I think of that before? I could just go.
I have to physically remove myself because I'm the kind of person where if there is someone next to me that, especially someone that I know, I'm going to talk to them. Like, I'm just going to, like I'm going to interact with them, and it's not going to be as productive for me as I need it to be, because that's just how I am if there are people, I'm going to interact with them and kind of overdo it. So I need to like physically be removed. Otherwise I won't do myself any good. But it's my own, it's my own.
But it's what works for you, right? I mean, that's important. And finding things that work for you to decompress, to recharge, I mean, imagine when you're teaching classroom, it was the same thing by the end of the day. Like, just a little bit of time to take it down a notch, to decompress, to, not.
That's what ultimately like kind of led me into, changing careers is in September, I'll start a PhD program at the University of Minnesota where I got my master's, and I can't do the like all day classroom thing and then come home with the 7-year-old thing. Like, I was just interacting with, like one crisis after another all day long. And then, my daughter all evening long. And it just like was completely draining me to have to interact and problem solve all day long. I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. So
a whole host of other, problems with my district and problems with like where, we're going, math education wise that made me make that decision. It wasn't just, my anxiety that led that, but, it definitely once I left the classroom, the anxiety level just plummeted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we've kind of a little bit alluded to this in some conversations, just having a strong-willed child, having a child who's like, this is the way it's going to get done. Or, my child is the best of both me and my wife and all the other things. So
it's like all the strong personality qualities of me and my husband are
rolled into one amazing tiny little fireball of a package, right?
Yeah. And people will say, you'll appreciate that when she's older and she's independent and she, and there, when I'm in her classroom, like I see her being independent and standing up for kids and standing up for herself. And that's good. It's just when it's just you and her having to deal with no, we're doing this, or no, I'm wearing these sandals without socks, even though there's a foot of snow on the ground. Like,
and they will almost certainly give you blisters. Yeah. I don't care. I don't care. They have mermaids on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I understand that completely. So your kind of next step, so you stepped away from the classroom, which you kind of laid out that decision a little bit without going into too much detail or throwing anybody specifically under any buses, which we like to try and do here. But so PhD program, and then are you thinking college math or?
I'm thinking like I definitely don't want to teach college math for sure. But teaching like math education courses would be, I think, enjoyable for me. I might get to do a little bit of that, through the PhD program. I think they have some of the PhD candidates teach some of the methods courses, and then supervising student teachers. But I think, there's an area of research that I'm interested in that was because of things that went on in my district with, we were adopting a new math curriculum. And so we had a whole lot of different types of math professional development, through the different textbook companies. And so an area of research that I'm interested in is professional development and what kind of professional development is the most effective with teachers. Like you have, conferences like ISTE or like NCTM. And then you have also like district, initiatives. And then you also have like textbook adoption, professional development. And, a lot of it is just, seat time because
Yeah.
the district says we have to go, to do this, we do it. And so I'm interested in looking at what's the most effective with teachers in motivating them to actually change practice, especially in math, because we have in this country a lot of issues with especially secondary math practice and how we're teaching kids math at the secondary level.
Oh, I could speak from experience in that trickles all the way down to the very beginning of math education. So I'm to hear you say that you are interested in teaching math teachers, teaching teachers how to be better. I mean, honestly, that's what started this whole podcast, and I mean, what started my what I wrote about when I wrote the book I have coming out is all about how do we learn and grow, and it's not so much from the like statistical perspective, but the actual individual educator perspective of what commonalities do we have, what things have we had happen, and how have we adjusted and changed. And I think one of the things that when you first said was really interesting to me is that you were paired with a special ed teacher, and she had lots of experience and she was really helpful for you kind of adjusting that first year. Because I know, like for me, I worked in a really small school and there was nobody else like there. There was one teacher, who was my assigned teacher, and she was great, and she actually helped me and she saved my career at one point. But to be honest, like there was nobody who was teaching things the way I wanted to teach them in my whole school. Like
that's a hard
me, and I was
uphill battle.
and I feel like the more people I talk to, like there's a lot of people like that. And so you think, how do you get from here to there? And
as teachers, we're used to being like the authority figure, the voice, the leader of the classroom, and so we have a really hard time listening to one another. And it's easy for us to. I mean, teachers can be pretty dang awful to each other. Especially to other teachers about other teachers, and we have every teacher has something to teach you. Whether it's what not to do or what to definitely do. It just if we take time to listen to each other and understand perspective, I think we as a profession would be a lot better off.
Yeah, and I think that's important, and I love the way that you kind of frame a lot of the stuff. So I'm looking forward to the days when you're you're teaching math teachers and teaching teachers how to how to do things a little differently, because one of the things I hope that you impart upon them is that sentiment to listen to everybody and stay in touch with people that you meet, and not just try to be your own thing and do it all by yourself, because even when you think you're being your own thing, there's somebody else who's doing it like that too. So
and connecting with those people is easier than ever.
That's a good point. It's really easy. Just reach out and there they are. Put something out there and people come back at you with something that you're looking for. So this was really, really fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing and telling us a little bit about your story and where you've been and where you're going, and all the wisdom, I think there's a lot of really valuable, there's a lot of conversation in all of this, but within that conversation, I feel like there's a lot of really valuable things for people to hear. So I can't thank you enough for joining me and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So,
all day long.
So if you would like to connect with Megan, she's on Twitter at Vegan Math Beagle. I get that right? I didn't miss anything. And her blog is her website is matthewbeagle.com. You can check out her blog. You can see some of the things she's worked on. You can talk to her over the internet, so that when you talk to her in person, she will talk to you and not put her headphones on. But yeah, so take time to check out what she's writing. She writes a lot of really great stuff, both on math and I think also on life, and being a teacher and dealing with different issues. So Thanks, Megan, again, and I really do appreciate it. I hope everybody gets as much out of it as I did. Thanks once again for joining us on the Teacher's Journey. Hope you'll follow us on iTunes, Spreaker, check us out on iHeartRadio, and give us a positive review if you're enjoying the show. Check out some other great episodes we have coming up, and catch you next time on the Teacher's Journey.